Hey there, Turlo here, the creator of Hip Hello and Geoland. The video you're about to watch here is a breakdown of how I started planning Geoland from the beginning. Geoland is currently available on itch.io and GameJolt for a free early access download. Please be sure to check that out, give it a try. I just wanted to give that background before you start watching here and diving in. This was recorded in early September. Welcome to the Geoland dev blog. This is an introduction of this new game I'm working on and plan to work on here over the next couple of weeks to months. I'm not actually sure how long this is going to take, but yeah, this is kind of what I plan to build. So yeah, like I said, it's going to just go over the game here. It is called Geoland. I'm actually going to show a special version of the game here. So this is a version I created back in April. I built this in let's see here 2 days. So yeah, April 3rd and April 4th. So just really going through the game. And the idea of this game here is it's a real-time strategy game in which you move units, throughout a grid, right? The original name for this game was called Grid Commander as well. So you can see Grid Commander here and there for sure. But the Geoland is the new name of the game I'm working on. I might change it again, but I did buy geolandgame.com. So hopefully don't change the name too many times here. But you can see here that this is a kind of early prototype of what I'm going to build first. And just all of this is probably going to change here. But the idea here is that you're the blue command base and your opponent is this like coral command base here. So imagine it being an AI or in a multiplayer setting that's another person. So the idea here is that you move units along a grid. So it's kind of like a fog of war style. So for example, as a player, you don't know what's here, even though you can probably tell a road goes here, but it can also go like that, right? It can also go around. So it's a fog of war mechanic here that I've been building. So you start here with units. There's infantry. So there's like a squad of 10, a platoon of 40, and a company of 100. So all subject to change. Just some ideas that I have here. And there are things called support points. So support points, you get them by the number of tiles that you're collected. They kind of generate over time. And then each unit also has a deployment time. So it'll take you, for example, in this case, you have 4 days to move across a tile, which I don't think it's going to be that drastic in terms of time, but that's just what I have so far. The second unit I have here is an armored jeep. So these are kind of like small vehicles. So transport will transport larger numbers, and it's just kind of like maybe like a convoy or something like that. I'm really playing around with this still, and then have much bigger units called tanks as well. So you can roll up a tank through here, and on this side here, this is kind of like your little intel screen here. So 3x3, you can see that you're selected. This one's blue one's representing that you selected it basically, and you have a little intel about what's there, and it's kind of like a real-time battle that happens. And I know that idea of drawing doesn't really fit exactly what I'm trying to explain, but I'm going to show that more as I build a game out through Unity and things like that. So I don't consider myself an artist in that way to really visualize what I'm trying to build. I'm much better with code when it comes to designing things in that way. I did work on a V2 here recently. So this is kind of like just a different approach to the idea of like kind of going with the more military-ish colors. And this is kind of saying like I just kind of try out a bunch of stuff, and once I start building, it's gonna start coming to me as well. I've been basically kind of exporting resources, as you can see here. And yeah, the MVP here created in JavaScript. I do plan to completely redo this in Unity. It's kind of part of the dev blog is going to be about. It's not about me writing a bunch of bad JavaScript to build a game. It's more about like expanding that here. So you have the same idea here. You have your units, you have your grid. You have like this is considered a small grid, pretty large compared to the one I designed there, but it's pretty big here. So you have this hover. You can see there's no intel here, and this is your target. So I can take these 4 units. I can select a yellow square and deploys them. So it takes 4, Basically, it's kind of simulating time moving by. Right, as time go by, and then you'll have some units here, and you can see there's 4 friendly units here. So yeah, you got that one. The next one's revealed. So pretty simple. So I plan to take this same concept and redo this in Unity for sure. So that'll definitely give me some more room to grow and stuff. The big reason for switching to Unity is going to be performance for sure. I have a lot of things that are just like like increment times and like set intervals that don't that don't really have like a timer on them. Even it's just like it's crazy. Another set interval here that goes every 2 seconds. It's doing a bunch of stuff, and yeah, there's a bunch of jQuery and stuff in here, but it just doesn't. It's not gonna scale well at all. Yeah, it's just not gonna scale in that way to make this a lot easier. Yeah, performance is already not great with this site here, and it's pretty buggy. So sometimes this grid doesn't even load properly. It just like completely freaks out. So the media maps don't even work, and they're supposed to. So it's just because like the code is super simple, but the problem is like the performance of this is just it's terrible. Yeah, so I do plan to, like I said, rebuild this in Unity. The big reasons why I want to build in Unity is to have an easier way to export to a Windows and a Mac version. And also plan to do like an iPad version as well. Probably not phone because it's a little too small screen. But yeah, I want to build for those platforms all at the same time. Also in the future, have the ability to build with a controller. I definitely don't see this being possible with a controller in any case. That's just not how things work. So yeah, that's a quick introduction into what the game is, what it looks like, how I plan to build it. I do have some docs here kind of explaining a little bit more detail of what I plan to do. I have this like reason why, because I started doing this for projects in general just to like help me understand like the scope and the reason why I'm building this project. And like in this case here, this is a real-time strategy, top-down game. Everything's on a grid. Move and spawn unions across a fog of war maze. That's what I'm building. That's the core of what I'm building here. So this is not like a role-playing game. This is not a first-person shooter. This is a real-time strategy, top-down game. There's no turn-by-turn. Everything happens and as just time goes on. Has this project been done before? Yes, it's a real-time strategy game. I'm not sure about the grid and the I know like the fog of war is definitely a real-time strategy thing, but I'm not sure about a grid at this level type stuff. Also not sure about the size of units I plan to use. Plan to go pretty large on unit sizes, like between hundreds and thousands of units that you can deploy here. So I don't know. This game is been created before. I did some Googling and Steam, browsing and didn't find anything. If you guys know of anything like this game, please let me know. I'd be curious to check it out and check out others like it. I definitely want to build something unique and different. So if, the goal is to start building in some mechanics that have just never been done before in a video game this style. So I want to make sure I'm not just copying someone off without knowing. So I think that's, yeah, it'd be good to know. But so far, I haven't seen anything like this game in particular, but real-time strategies, of course, those games exist. Is this project part of your core business, or will you be leveraging your strengths, or will you be venturing into a completely new arena technology industry? This question is kind of like set up a little weird. It's because I do have a lot of side projects that I tend to work on. I do freelancing from here and there too. So I like to think of every project as a way of like, it should be independent. This should be set up in a way where maybe I don't have to, in a way where I don't have to worry about like trying to grow or even sell the project later. I just want to have that kind of based into it, right? So it's like, for example, if I start building this game and it gets really popular and things like that, I want to have that support behind it. So it's not like, oh no, now we need to do all these things and get set up in this way. It's like, no, prepare for that as well. Also, I don't plan to go down a publisher route, but there's a publisher that's interested and publishing the game, I will love to have that already set up as well. So yeah, so here's some of the reasons. Answer to these questions, I guess, to say here is I tried to build this game using web technologies and it was a complete failure. From what I can see, Unity is kind of a lot easier. Yeah, I built some MVPs in Unity already. That's going to be the next video I'm going to show, kind of showing you like what's possible, what's not possible. But I haven't found anything that's not possible in Unity so far, based on my vision and my goal here. But yeah, this HTML version here does not scale well. Here's just something I'm personally aware of. Just I haven't published a game before. I've published apps, websites, and things like that, even desktop apps. I've not published a game before, so that's just something I need to be aware of. And I've also like to share, share. I also want to share the entire development process on YouTube. So that's why I'm making this video here, introducing the project. My goal is to kind of share the developing of the game, the testing of the game, probably even like the launch and marketing of the game, kind of just share that. I enjoy videos like this one in particular because it kind of inspires me to create cool stuff, but also get to learn from others as well. So can you clearly define the scope? Do you know what the project will produce and look like when it's completed? This is a very important question. You should always ask yourself this question before building a game or any other project for that matter, right? It's like, don't just sit down and be like, I'm going to build a first-person shooter, and then you don't define the scope, and then like all of a sudden scope creep starts happening, right? Where it's like, oh no, now you're building in, like teleportation into your shooter game. Now you're building in like AI bots and multiplayer stuff, or you're making it like a battle royale type game versus a team deathmatch type game. Like your scope can just go all over the place. So it's important to define the scope here. So for me, based on what I'm building here, the goal is to build a game for sale with multiplayer. So multiplayer is going to be key. So am building and planning this game, multiplayer is going to be important for me to think of in the back of my head. This project should need little to no maintenance after completion. Expectation of the player should be to expect nothing after release. And what I mean by this is that I don't want to do something where I'm building a game and this game has like new seasons of new content coming out every 3 months or something like that. I don't plan to do that. My goal is to just build a game. Like if you bought this game, you should feel really good for what you purchase from the quality and the content size, and you should be expecting more content to come in, right? This is not like a continuation project. It's not like like Hearthstone where there's like new cards coming. This isn't that type of game. This is just like a game you buy. It's kind of self-contained, and maybe there'll be more things in the future that I'll add and add new things and new units. Sure, but it's just like from the player perspective, they're buying a single polished experience there. So I want to build a campaign mode following a story. I have a couple of ideas on how I want to achieve this. I'll probably talk more about that in a later video, but I do have some very creative ideas on the story that I want to build and make it pretty in depth. Also have a like growing difficulty as well. So multiplayer to play with others. I just want to have multiplayer, and anything above that should go in the sequel. So if it's not any of these things, it should definitely go in the sequel. So if I start like adding in crazy mechanics that I haven't thought of before, I think even right now, like if I decide to build this game in 3D for some reason, that would definitely go in a sequel. Or if I add some, let's say I add like three players versus 3 players type thing, or I don't know, like you can control the units, like whatever. That stuff goes in a sequel just to help me just finish and complete the project here. I have this other game design doc here that kind of goes through the objective here, the setting, the gameplay mechanics, like the 3, 2, 1 countdown timer. The game happens in real time. Gameplay mechanics, the game happens in real time. 3, 2, 1 countdown timer, the AI action speeds based on difficulty, right? Deploying units, all this stuff here I plan to do. So squads and things, looking into all the type of units you can have. And down here's what I want to get to, because this is important as I'm building the game out and keep these things in mind. So For the player, I think the journey of the player, I should consider and build these things in. You start in a simple grid. It's created to explain the game, right? So I'm thinking like a 4x4 grid to explain the game versus putting you on this grid here. Just keep that in mind. Grids get bigger and mazes become more complex. Like I think that's a way to kind of evolve the user journey. So as a user start on some 4x4 grid, imagine like a 20x20 grid now that's going in a bunch of directions with dead ends in them and things like that. So that's important. The AI deploy more units at a higher level. So as the game kind of goes on, I want to be able to deploy more and more units on the user when it gets towards like in the story mode. It's like this is really hard because the AI is just deploying tons and tons of units. Your job is to defeat them and take over their command base here. Procedural grids, I want to use those as well for another increased challenge. The game is pretty simple, so adding in procedural grids can go a long way. So for example, imagine kind of like a very large grid. So in this case here, my super large grid, imagine this grid here, but it's procedural. So let's say you play this in a story mode and you lose. Let's say you play this in a story mode and you lose, then let's say you play this in a story mode and you lose. If you come back and try again, I would love for the map to be completely different, right? So you can't just learn from the dead ends that you found and what's over here, what's over there, like things like that. I don't want you to do that. I think procedural grids could go a long, long way here. And these are the player configurations. So it's like player versus AI and player versus player. So once again, as I'm building the game, as I'm building in mechanics, I'm building in like decisions or things that players need to make, I have to keep in mind that AI needs to make them. Also, there's going to be two players making decisions as well. So those are just important tasks and important things to be aware of. Once again, as I'm building the game here. So this is kind of where I'm at in terms of the game so far. Like I said, the next video is going to be about building the MVP and really start getting into Unity